Imagine a road, with no beginning, and no end. A road that stretched across deserts, climbed towering mountains, crossed vast grasslands, and linked civilizations that had never seen one another. It wasn't built by a single empire. It wasn't even a single road. It was a network of thousands of miles, connecting east and west for more than 15 centuries. History calls it the Silk Road. Along these routes, merchants carried silk, spices, jade, precious metals, and countless other goods. But the greatest treasures were never packed onto a camel. They traveled in people's minds. Religions crossed continents. Ideas transformed civilizations. Technologies changed the course of history. Even deadly diseases found new paths across the world. Without the Silk Road, Buddhism might never have spread across East Asia. Paper might have taken far longer to reach Europe. The world we know today could have looked very different. Yet every journey came at a terrible cost. Travelers faced scorching deserts, freezing mountain passes, ruthless bandits, political conflict, and the constant threat of never returning home. Still, they kept going. What could possibly be worth risking everything for? How did a collection of dangerous trade routes become the world's first global network? And how did it bring together civilizations that had once believed they lived at the very center of the world? To answer that, we must travel back more than 2,000 years, to an empire searching not for wealth, but for an ally that would unknowingly change human history forever. More than 2,000 years ago, China faced a powerful enemy. The nomadic Xiongnu tribes repeatedly raided the northern borders of the Han Dynasty, threatening its security and disrupting trade. The Han Emperor realized that defeating them would require more than armies alone. He needed allies. Around 138 BC, the emperor sent an envoy named Zhang Qian on a dangerous mission to the lands far beyond China's western frontier. His goal was to find friendly kingdoms willing to join an alliance against the Xiongnu. The journey was anything but easy. Zhang Qian was captured, held prisoner for years, escaped, and continued westward through deserts, mountains, and unfamiliar kingdoms. Although he failed to secure the alliance he sought, he returned to China with something even more valuable: knowledge. He described distant civilizations, thriving markets, powerful horses, and trade opportunities stretching far beyond anything the Han court had imagined. His reports changed China's outlook forever. The emperor realized that the lands beyond the deserts were not empty wilderness. They were connected to prosperous kingdoms eager to trade. Gradually, merchants began following the routes that Zhang Qian had explored. Chinese silk traveled west, while horses, precious stones, glassware, and new ideas flowed east. No one called it the Silk Road at the time. It was simply a growing network of caravan routes, linking people who spoke different languages, followed different religions, and had never met before. But opening the route was only the first challenge. Crossing it would test every traveler who dared to take the journey. For the merchants who traveled the Silk Road, the greatest danger wasn't reaching their destination. It was surviving the journey. There was no single road to follow. Instead, countless routes wound through some of the harshest landscapes on Earth. To the north lay endless grasslands. To the south rose the towering Himalayas. Between them stretched the vast Taklamakan Desert, so unforgiving that an old saying warned, "Go in, and you will not come out." Water was scarce. Sandstorms could erase entire trails within hours. Freezing nights followed scorching days, and one wrong turn could mean certain death. The mountains were no kinder. Caravans crossed narrow passes where snow, avalanches, and thin air claimed countless lives. A single misplaced step could send people, animals, and priceless cargo plunging into the valleys below. Then there were the bandits. Small groups of merchants stood little chance against armed raiders, so travelers joined large caravans for protection. Dozens, sometimes hundreds, of camels moved together, carrying food, water, and valuable goods across thousands of miles. The journey could take months, sometimes years. Many merchants never completed it. Yet despite the dangers, the caravans kept coming. Because what waited at the other end was worth a fortune. Silk was only the beginning. Soon, the roads would carry treasures that transformed kingdoms, and ideas that transformed the world. Although history remembers it as the Silk Road, silk was only one of countless treasures that traveled these routes. From China came fine silk, porcelain, paper, and lacquerware. From India came spices, cotton, precious gems, and medicines. Central Asia supplied magnificent horses, while the Middle East and the Mediterranean offered glassware, silver, wool, and finely crafted metalwork. Every caravan carried something valuable, but the greatest reward often came from what could not be weighed. Merchants exchanged languages. Diplomats shared ideas. Travelers returned home with stories of distant kingdoms that seemed almost unimaginable. Entire cities flourished because of this exchange. Oases such as Samarkand, Bokhara, and Kashgar became vibrant crossroads where people from different cultures traded goods, negotiated deals, and encountered traditions unlike anything they had ever known. A merchant might leave China carrying silk, and return with Roman glass, Persian textiles, Indian spices, and knowledge from lands he had never expected to see. The Silk Road was quietly changing the world, not by uniting it under one empire, but by connecting civilizations that had once lived in isolation. Yet goods were only part of the story. The most powerful cargo carried by the caravans could not be packed into a chest or loaded onto a camel. It was ideas, and those ideas would reshape the course of human civilization forever. As merchants crossed the Silk Road, they carried far more than goods. Every caravan became a moving bridge between civilizations. Along these routes, Buddhism spread from India into Central Asia and eventually reached China, Korea, and Japan. Monks traveled alongside merchants, translating sacred texts into new languages and establishing monasteries that welcomed travelers from distant lands. Centuries later, Islam expanded across much of the Silk Road, connecting cities through a shared faith while encouraging scholarship, trade, and scientific exchange. Christianity, too, reached parts of Asia through missionaries who followed the same ancient routes. Ideas traveled just as freely. Paper, first developed in China, gradually made its way westward, transforming education and record-keeping. Printing, gunpowder, and the magnetic compass would eventually reshape warfare, navigation, and the spread of knowledge far beyond Asia. Knowledge moved in every direction. Chinese inventions reached Europe. Persian astronomy influenced scholars in the East. Indian mathematics spread across the Islamic world before helping transform European science. The Silk Road became humanity's first great information network. No empire controlled every mile of it, yet countless cultures contributed to it. For centuries, trade continued despite wars, changing borders, and political rivalries. But there came a time when much of Eurasia was united under a single power. For the first time in history, the Silk Road would become safer than ever before. and its greatest age was about to begin. 4 centuries, wars and political instability repeatedly disrupted the Silk Road. One kingdom would protect a section of the route. Another would close its borders. Merchants were forced to adapt constantly, finding new paths through deserts and mountains. Then, in the 13th century, everything changed. The Mongol Empire swept across Eurasia with astonishing speed. Under Genghis Khan and his successors, it became the largest contiguous land empire in history, stretching from East Asia to Eastern Europe. Although the Mongols conquered through war, they understood the value of trade. They protected merchants, punished bandits, maintained roads, and established relay stations where travelers could rest, change horses, and continue their journey. This period became known as the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol Peace. For the first time, merchants could travel across much of Eurasia with greater safety than ever before. Trade flourished, cities prospered, and people, goods, and ideas moved across continents at an unprecedented scale. Among those travelers was Marco Polo, whose journey to the court of Kublai Khan introduced many Europeans to a world they had never imagined. The Silk Road had reached its greatest height. But the same network that carried prosperity also carried something invisible, something far more dangerous than bandits or armies. It was a passenger no caravan intended to transport. And it would change the course of human history. The Silk Road connected civilizations, but it could not choose what traveled along it. As merchants, pilgrims, diplomats, and soldiers crossed Eurasia, they carried more than silk, spices, and ideas. They also carried disease. In the mid-14th century, a deadly outbreak began spreading westward along the same trade routes that had fueled centuries of prosperity. Historians believe the Black Death, caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis, moved through caravans and ports before reaching the cities of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. The consequences were catastrophic. Entire communities were devastated. Trade slowed. Cities emptied. Fear spread faster than any caravan. Within a few years, the pandemic had claimed tens of millions of lives, making it one of the deadliest outbreaks in human history. The Silk Road had unintentionally revealed the cost of a connected world. The same routes that allowed knowledge, inventions, and cultures to travel across continents also allowed invisible dangers to do the same. Yet even after the plague, merchants eventually returned. Trade continued. Civilizations rebuilt. But the Silk Road would never fully recover its former strength. A different kind of route was beginning to reshape the world. It wasn't carved through deserts or mountains. It crossed the open sea, and it would slowly bring the age of the great caravan to an end. For more than 15 centuries, the Silk Road had connected East and West. But no trade network lasts forever. As powerful empires weakened, the routes became less secure. Political instability returned to Central Asia, making long-distance travel increasingly dangerous. Merchants once again faced bandits, conflict, and unpredictable borders. At the same time, a new era of exploration was unfolding. European sailors began searching for direct sea routes to Asia, hoping to bypass the long and costly journey across the continent. Advances in shipbuilding and navigation made ocean travel faster, cheaper, and capable of carrying far greater quantities of cargo than camel caravans ever could. Then, in 1498, Vasco da Gama reached India by sailing around the southern tip of Africa. It was a turning point. Trade that had flowed through deserts and mountain passes for centuries gradually shifted to the oceans. Ports flourished, while many of the great caravan cities lost the importance they had once enjoyed. The Silk Road did not disappear overnight. Some sections remained active for generations. But its golden age had come to an end. The caravans grew smaller. The roads grew quieter. The desert slowly reclaimed the tracks left behind by countless travelers. Yet something remarkable had already happened. The Silk Road had changed the world forever. And even after the caravans vanished, its legacy continued to shape every civilization it had once connected. Although the caravans eventually disappeared, the Silk Road never truly ended. Its physical roads faded. Its influence did not. For more than 15 centuries, the Silk Road had connected civilizations that might otherwise have remained strangers. It carried goods across continents, but its greatest achievement was creating the world's first truly interconnected network of cultures, ideas, and innovation. The effects are still visible today. Paper transformed education. The compass revolutionized navigation. Printing accelerated the spread of knowledge. Religions crossed borders. Languages borrowed words from one another. Foods, music, art, and architecture blended across regions, leaving traces that can still be seen from China to the Mediterranean. The Silk Road proved that civilizations grow stronger when they exchange ideas rather than isolate themselves. In many ways, the modern world continues the same story. Container ships now cross oceans instead of camel caravans crossing deserts. Airplanes carry people in hours instead of months. The Internet moves information in seconds instead of years. The methods have changed. The purpose has not. Humanity is still connected by networks that link distant cultures, economies, and people. The ancient Silk Road may no longer exist beneath our feet. But its spirit lives on. And perhaps its greatest lesson is waiting at the end of the journey. What truly changed the world wasn't what people traded. It was what they shared.